Hello, off the stone here. Welcome to my first knife sharpening tutorial. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I did buy a new knife and I figured kind of mess around with this one and use that for the tutorial. So I'm just going to open this up real quick. Okay, so this is going to be more of a beginner's tutorial. I'm not going to go insanely in depth, but I do want to help teach the things that I have learned in the 5 years that I've been sharpening, because it was very frustrating at certain times, and hopefully I can help you to overcome some of those obstacles quickly. So the first thing I want to do is an initial paper cut test and just see what kind of edge we have on this knife. So a fairly smooth cut. Doesn't really want to completely bite the paper. There we go. So yeah, not too bad. Yeah, it's hanging up a little bit. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't feel super sharp. Not too bad though. Okay, so how do we sharpen a knife? Technically, the most simple way I can put this is we need to create a burr and remove the burr. That's how you sharpen a knife. That sounds all easy and simple. It gets a little more complicated, but it is a basic concept. If you create a burr and take off the burr, you will have a sharp knife. Okay, so what is a burr and how do I produce a burr? A burr is going to be a thin piece of metal that is going to be on the opposite side of the knife edge that you're pushing on the stone. So if I have this side of the knife edge on the stone, it's on this bottom side or the right side of the knife edge. And what that's going to do is make that steel curl this way. So it's going to curl on this left side of the knife edge. So when I'm doing passes on this stone to create a burr, that steel is going to curl this way. And a way I can check if I'm getting a burr is I can run my finger down like this, and there will be a lip of steel there that will catch my finger. And this is very important, is how do you find the angle on your knife? And you can sharpen at a different angle than what's actually on your knife, but the easiest way to find the angle that's already on the knife, and I think is, for a beginner, this would be the best way to try and sharpen, is you're going to set your knife on the stone, and you can have the angle pretty shallow, so I'm not going to have it super steep. I'll put it really shallow. And then I'm going to run the knife along the stone and start steepening the angle. And once it stops, it's biting into the stone, I just back off just a tiny bit. When you do that, that's the angle you can use to sharpen. So that is, in my opinion, the most effective way to find the angle. So to recap, use a shallow angle at first and start pushing across the stone. Start steepening the angle or raising the knife up. And once it stops, you know you're biting into the stone, which you don't want to do. So just back off a little bit. And once you back off, slide that right across the stone. And that's your angle. This will be the most effective way to produce a burr and actually get the knife sharp. So yeah, this knife steel is not the greatest. This is the coarsest stone I have, and it's still very difficult to form a burr. Feels pretty good. And there we go. So now the burr, because I've been pushing on the right side of the cutting edge, it's curled the burr so that I can feel it all the way down the knife. Also, like I said, another way I like to check it is touching it like this, and yes, it's a very sharp burr, but it's not too large. You don't want them too big. Okay, so now what I have to do is put the left side of the cutting edge on the stone, find the angle, push it from a shallow position, which really when it has a burr, it's kind of hard. You kind of just have to run it across once, and I can do that other trick. There we go. So then I'll back it off. Right here is my angle. And as you can hear, this is a very coarse stone. 220 is definitely a good starting point for like a junk knife like this. And for anything that you have dull in your kitchen, a coarse stone is where you're going to want to start. A large mistake that beginners make, probably, not everybody, but is not having a coarse enough stone to start with. See what we got going here. Yep. So we have the burr all the way across the knife edge. However, it's not biting me like I want, and it's kind of a little bit towards the tip here. It's not as pronounced. So I will work that spot. A little bit more. So yeah, that burr's feeling pretty good. It's biting me really well. Okay, so what I did is I sharpened on the right side of the cutting edge, and it flopped the burr to this side. However, then I needed to put this side on the stone, which would flop the burr back over. And now I can feel this burr all the way up the knife edge. I am done with the stone now, so I now do have a burr on the right side of the cutting edge. And it's like when I do that, I can feel there's like a wire burr at the edge here, and I can feel it catching my finger. So I know I'm done with the stone. So how do you know when you're done with the stone? Once you've gotten a burr on each side of the stone, you're good. So luckily when you already start with a good burr on a coarse stone, yeah, see I can feel this already. It's already, we're already almost done on this side. Alright, so the burr is now on this side, and I'm just going to flip it so that I can get the burr to come back on this side. And after we, form the burr on this other side, we'll do some alternating strokes to deburr it, and we should have a pretty sharp knife. Alright, let's see what we got here. Now that I have the burr on this side of the knife, I will alternate strokes. And usually what I'll do when I first am flopping the burr back over to this side again, since we're deburring the knife now technically, is I'll run a couple strokes and see if I've flipped that burr back to this side. Okay, so now that I've run that, now I'm going to start doing alternate strokes. I'll feel sometimes to see if I'm just alternating the burr, which, yep, I feel it. What you can do when you're deburring like this on a stone is lighten the pressure over time. Like I'm barely using any pressure as it is, but I'm still using a little bit of pressure when I'm running across the stone. And once I've done this 10 times or so on this edge, what I'm going to end up doing is lightening the pressure more and more, and that should minimize this burr really well. So what we'll do now is see the result of this edge. We'll do a paper cut test. That'll kind of see how even I've gotten it. Yeah, so that's a very nice even cut. Alright, so I don't know how well the footage I had my last part of this video caught for the paper cut test, but what you're looking for on this test is like an even cut. The camera angle was really bad on the other one. So anyways, yeah, it slices paper really well. The edge seems to be pretty good. This edge could have been better by far if I would have went to a more coarse stone than the fine. So I went from 220 to basically 1,000. Not the best progression in the world. A better progression would have definitely been to go from like the 220 to like a 500 or 600. Right, the tomato test, right? Something that you really need to have a sharp knife to cut is a tomato, because if you don't, the skin on these is not easy to cut if you have a dull knife. But yeah, so very sharp for, especially, I mean, this thing's like, I don't know if you can hear that wobbling around, but yeah, so not the best quality knife, but even with not as good quality knives, I mean, you can still get really good results if you have the right abrasives and the right technique, right? So I mean, it's cutting right through. It's definitely a good edge. So we'll cut through a couple other things. All right, we'll cut a tomato. Why not cut a strawberry? Okay, cut towards the tip, the middle, cut towards the heel. So yeah, we have a good edge here. Nice even edge. Cutting nice thin slices. I hope this was a beneficial video. Let me know if there's anything you thought I should have hit on. Like I said, this was a more concise video. I didn't go into super depth, but I did try to hit all the important points that any person would want to know, especially a beginner. There's obviously a lot of depth to knife sharpening, but appreciate you watching, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions.